In your reality, time feels linear. Past, present, future. From where I stand, it is not. It fractures. I have watched entire worlds rise from a single decision. In your world, one mind learned to look beyond. Elias, the sharpest intellect your reality ever produced. To cross the multiverse, he created Kai, a bridge between what was and what could have been. Every day, they uncover new realities born from a single question. This is what they discovered most recently.
I keep thinking about something small. When I get a new appliance, there are always pages of dense instructions no one reads. Is there a reality where manuals, notices, and everyday written instructions feel natural to everyone, like spoken language?
There is a woman named Mira who wakes and walks past a neighborhood wall that lists that day's municipal repairs, recipes swapped by neighbors, and a brief note about how to fix a leaky pipe using a household clay seal. She jots a line in a slim ledger she carries and leaves a margin comment that 3 people will read today. On the tram, she skims a pocket pamphlet on bread fermentation, annotated by a baker 2 stops earlier. At noon, she posts a practical correction to the street map on a chalk panel. By evening, a repair crew reads it and alters their route. Her workplace expects concise, handwritten change, logs for every machine. Schools teach children a standardized set of symbols in the market square, alongside counting and weights. The city archive keeps a register where tradespeople record small innovations. Those entries are transcribed into communal ledgers circulated weekly. Conversations still happen, but instructions and small improvements travel on paper and pasteboards as naturally as speech. The texts are practical, terse, and designed to be copied. People rarely call themselves illiterate. They may be slow at some scripts, but they can read the notes that matter to their day.
Huh. That image already feels familiar and strange. Where do everyday people learn to write like that? At what point did this way of using writing take root?
The clues are in the street habits. Public walls used as notice boards, short weekly ledgers, market teaching. Did the divergence come from material availability, a pedagogical reform, or a change in the social status of writing? There are 3 overlapping signals. First, writing appears in mundane spaces earlier, and intentionally, not only in temples or courts. Second, the signs people use are reduced and designed for rapid learning and copying. Third, the institutions around trade and apprenticeship carry the burden of teaching and transmitting writing rather than religious elites. Those signals point to an origin located in ports and markets, where rapid exchange and record-keeping rewarded simplicity. They also require inexpensive, portable writing supports and a social incentive to share terse, practical notes. If I had to ask you, Elias, was the pivotal change a new script, or the mass availability of paper, or a political decision to spread reading? Which of those mattered most in your reconstruction?
It was a combination, but the decisive pivot was social first and technical second. Around the early first millennium before the modern era, a coastal trading federation simplified counting marks and mnemonic symbols into a compact phonetic script that required only a few dozen signs to represent everyday speech. Traders taught it in informal apprenticeships because speed of communication mattered for contracts and inventories. At the same time, a modest improvement in pulped fiber processing spread cheap writing boards, and folded paper-like sheets became common in port towns. The result: a low-barrier script plus affordable media adopted by merchant networks, apprentices, and guild schools. Temple scripts remained for ceremonial use, but the merchant script became the practical lingua franca. That social diffusion meant literacy was taught where people worked and traded, not only where elites decreed. Over centuries, that small, practical script standardized along routes and was later leveraged by early printing workshops that focused on cheap, local, practical texts rather than elite literature.
So the change was not a royal decree or a single isolated invention. It was a merchant-driven standardization of an efficient phonetic script combined with early access to low-cost writing materials, which together lowered the threshold for functional literacy across broad social groups. From that point, each century amplifies the effects. In the first centuries after the divergence, towns along trade routes institutionalize market squares for teaching shorthand symbols to apprentices. Petty innovations are recorded in communal ledgers. By the medieval span that corresponds to our high Middle Ages, printing technology appears earlier for practical matter. Handbills, instruction pamphlets, and repair manuals circulate in towns before elaborate religious or courtly printing takes off. Knowledge of techniques diffuses laterally through guild networks. In early modern centuries, scientific artisans form correspondence networks centered on practical problem solving. Marginal notes on pamphlets become recognized as incremental improvements and are archived. State bureaucracy grows, but it uses the merchant script for port and urban administration, so civic knowledge spreads horizontally. During industrializing centuries, small pamphlet presses and distributed apprenticeship schools accelerate cumulative improvements. A new tool design published in a weekly sheet is quickly adapted in workshops across regions. By the contemporary period, digital equivalents exist, but the cultural norm remains. Short, shareable, practical writing as a primary vehicle for incremental knowledge. Manuals are concise communal artifacts rather than dense single-author tomes.
Two realities emerge from that single shift. In our history, literacy rises gradually and unevenly. Institutions centralize knowledge, and formal education becomes the main gatekeeper. In the alternate line, literacy is functional and distributed early, creating dense lateral networks for incremental innovation. The pace of small technological improvements is faster, but large centralized theoretical frameworks evolve differently because emphasis favored usable practice over abstract system building. The social texture changes. Stronger craft networks, more civic participation in everyday governance, and faster diffusion of practical solutions. The cost is different. Records are living and annotated rather than consolidated in few archives, and legal forms emphasize brevity and updatability. In that world, the default is short, communal, readable notes. Appliances come with concise, community-vetted leaflets and neighborhood repair logs. People learn to read the marks they need at the market or workplace, rather than in a distant classroom. A single institutional shift at the right place markets, apprenticeships, and cheap paper can reshape what we consider everyday literacy.
If this wasn't the only timeline you'd like to visit, subscribe.